Hey friends, this is Carrie and welcome back to I Like Reddit channel. Today's stories are all out of the Entitled Parents subreddit. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to let you know when I've uploaded new content. On to our first story. Our first story is by Dab and Glock. Entitled mother at the fair leaves her son in the heat, CPS gets called. Alright, this is a story from when I worked at the fair in my freshman year of college. The cast: EM, you should know, but entitled mother; PK, poor kid; me, M, my manager; CPS, Child Protective Services; PD, poor dad. The backstory doesn't matter, but I think someone will ask anyway. So, I had to work here to get some money for food and start getting money for my student loans. Now, let's start the story. It was a pretty hot day at the fair, and I was working under a tent at the bumper cars. I'm pretty sure my manager just didn't want to deal with an 18-year-old getting heat stroke because of him. Anyway, I see entitled mom and PK approach the rides. PK's face is red as Rudolph's nose. All he had in his hand was a lollipop, and EM was chugging a bottle of water. I also noticed that PK looked too light to go on the ride. At the fair I worked at, we had to weigh people to go on the bumper cars so it wouldn't break their bones when they get hit by another car. After about 20 minutes, EM and PK make it to the front. I put PK on the scale, and as I guessed, he was too light. The following conversation ensues. A bit of rewording. I don't remember the exact conversation. Me: I'm sorry, ma'am, but your son's too light for this ride. May I suggest another one of our rides? EM: no, he'll be fine. Just let him on. Me: ma'am, I can't do that. EM: alright, I'll just leave him here then. Me: it's not my job to babysit your kid. EM: do not disrespect me. Me: alright then. I just decided to let this go and watch PK for a little while. I let everyone onto the ride, and just as I'm about to start, I hear a thump and a ton of gasps. I turn and look behind me, and PK is on the ground passed out. Thank God my podium was in the grass. I quickly called my manager on the walkie-talkie he gave us and picked up the kid. Me: does anybody have any water? A lady hands me a bottle, and I poured it on PK's face to cool him down. My manager comes with an ice pack to cool down PK, and this whole time EM has been huffing and puffing and mumbling about how the ride hasn't started yet. I ignored all of this until he finally says something out loud. EM: leave him, he'll be fine. Me: ma'am, we can't do that. He could die. EM: no, he won't. He's my kid. I know what's best. I was fuming at this point. This lady was choosing a ride over her child. I took out my phone and called the police to arrest this lady and get an ambulance for the kid, who seemed to be waking up. EM tried to run when she saw what I was doing, but some random stranger held her down so that she couldn't go anywhere. EM even tried to press charges against the guy who held her down. The cops arrived with an ambulance. Poor kid was placed in the ambulance. EM was placed in the cop car, and CPS was called. Poor dad came as well, but CPS needed to investigate the home. EM ended up getting charged with numerous things, but the only one I vividly remember my manager telling me was child endangerment and attempted murder. She got what she deserved. A few months later, I saw poor kid and poor dad in a store, and I walked up to them. Turns out poor dad was in the process of divorcing EM and currently had full custody of poor kid. Justice at last. Edit: thank you to the kind stranger for the silver. Just to clarify, they tried to charge her with attempted murder, but they couldn't get the case. They only really got her on child negligence charges. I'm astounded by the level of neglect this woman has for her kid. I mean, why bother taking him to the fair at all, unless this was her plan all along, was for him to just pass out from heat exhaustion or heat stroke. I'm glad that poor kid made a full recovery and that his dad got custody of him. I'm also glad that EM got jail time, or at the very least got charged with something. It's too bad they couldn't get her on attempted murder. Anyway, on to our next story. Our next story is by Sweater Stripey 83. Entitled mother refuses to give up 2 seats for people who need them because her kids are tired. This story happened a couple of years ago. It's nowhere near as bad as some that I've read on here, but it definitely fits this sub. I thought about this the other day, as my brother had recently broken his arm, and I went to the hospital with him. It reminds me of one of my trips to the hospital that still irks me to this day. 2 years ago, I broke my foot, the 5th metatarsal bone. I was actually in a cast for 8 months as my bone wasn't healing. It eventually turned out I had a vitamin D deficiency, so once I started to take vitamin D tablets, it started to heal. Just a little bit of info for you there. If you ever break a bone, take vitamin D. Anyway, I had to take many trips to the fracture clinic to be x-rayed. The fracture wasn't that painful, but it was hard to walk for long periods of time. One morning, I had an early appointment, as it was still early on with the break. I was on crutches, as I couldn't bear any weight on it at this point. I hobble over to the clinic, and the waiting room is absolutely full. No seats at all. So I find a space to stand in where I won't be blocking anyone. After about 20 minutes of waiting, my foot starts to ache. Not by my broken foot, but the other one having to bear my weight solely on that one. I can't shift my weight to the other foot, so it was aching. I looked around the room, and some people are giving me a few pitying looks, but these are the people who can't give me the seats due to their own breaks. The few looking at me nod over in the direction of a large family taking up 6 seats. I look over myself and see the father in an arm cast and his wife and 4 kids. All look to be over the age 5 to 6. I hobble over to see if they might acknowledge me and give up a seat. As you can guess, that is not what happened at all. Sigh. The family all see me and look at me and then look away. I decide to check them out and see if they all need the seats for some reason. I don't like to assume things. For context, my best friend has a muscle disorder, meaning she can't stand or walk for long periods of time and needs to sit often. You wouldn't know from looking at her that she had this condition. After 10 minutes, and after seeing that the whole family is fine, I asked the mother if it's possible to take a seat from either one of her kids because my foot is aching, as I had a feeling I would be standing here for a long time. She just shook her head and said, "No, sorry." Now, I'm not one for confrontations, but I don't suffer fools gladly, and I absolutely despise unfairness. So I say, aside from your husband, yourself and your children don't need seats. This is a fracture clinic. It's for patients with fractures. I don't think it's fair to take up 5 seats. At this point, an elderly couple comes in. Her husband has had a knee surgery from the looks of it, and although he was walking and not in a wheelchair, it was blindly obvious that he needed to sit down. So then I say, look, if you're not going to give a seat to me, the least you can do is give that gentleman a seat. She replies with an epic, "We were here first. Deal with it." I wanted to smack her over the head with one of my crutches. I say, yes, you may have been here first, love, but it doesn't work that way. You were taking up 5 seats unnecessarily. This gentleman needs to sit down, and I would like to as well. As I said before, this is a fracture clinic for patients with, wow, would you guessed it? Fractures. She goes, "Look, stop asking me. You're doing my head in now. We were here first. My children are tired. I'm not having them stand when they're tired." One of her kids says, "Mom, I don't need to be standing. I'll give up my seat." He stands up, but his mother shoves him back into the seat and says, No, you won't. We were here first. Some people need to learn some manners." Wow. So I say, this has nothing to do with manners. It has to do with human decency. Let this guy sit down, you human piece of refuse. Nope. The same kid as before gets up and actually helps this old guy sit down. Very sweet. His brother then stands up and tells me that he can have my seat. I say thank you and sit down. The mother isn't at all happy and says out loud, "Some people can be so effing selfish. Jack." Fake name. Tell them. The husband has been engrossed on his phone for all of this, just sighs and shakes his head. I'm guessing he was sick of her himself at this point. I end up talking to the 2 boys who stood up, and we talked about computer games. I work with kids, so I know a lot about kids stuff, what's cool at the moment, etc. Anyway, I finally get called and just say to the mother, "You have some very sweet, intelligent, and well-mannered kids. Will you tell whoever taught them to keep it up?" She looked smug and proud until she actually got the last part of my comment, but by that time, I had hobbled too far away from her to retaliate. Too long, didn't read. Entitled mother refuses to give up seats for people who really need them. I was amazed that the entitled mother called him selfish for wanting to take up 1 seat while she's taking up 5, especially since there wasn't anything wrong with her or her kids. I mean, they could have easily stood when other people need to sit down. but I guess that's entitlement for you. When you're entitled to seats, you can just take any seats, regardless of the needs of anybody else in the room. Anyway, on to our next story. Our final story is by Electric Coyote. My entitled mother forged my name to buy a car to evade the IRS. A little bit of back information. My mother is horrible with money. She pulled $90,000 out of her 401k early. She didn't put anything aside for taxes. So she had $30,000 in back-owed taxes. During that time, I had to bail her out of her unpaid rent and with the promise that she would pay me back. She never did. That was to the tune of $3,000, twice. I also bought her a house to live in after the apartment she lived in got foreclosed on. Now to the story. My mom called me up, and this was the initial conversation, and it went as followed. EM. Hey, OP, I got some good news. Me. Oh yeah? What is it? EM. I bought a new car. Me. Okay. That's really cool of you. Thank you. EM. Well, I didn't buy you a car, I bought me a car. It's just in your name. You know, the IRS is gonna garnish my wages and they might take everything I own. So I need another car in case they take mine. It can't be in my name, so I signed your name on all the papers. Me. Okay? Fast forward a few years. She has run the car into the ground. It no longer works as the starter went out, the battery shot, and the AC doesn't work. The registration was expired and someone slashed the tires while it was parked on the road. It needed a lot of work. So she had spent about $3,000 to buy the car, so it wasn't super expensive to begin with. Plus, after the elapsed years, it was only worth about $1,000. EM called me up a day after my birthday to tell me that the car was going to be towed. The city had put a 72-hour notice on the window. She waited 48 hours to tell me. She said she waited because she didn't want to ruin my birthday. So my girlfriend, now my wife, and I rounded up a wrecker and had the car towed to our place. We went to work almost immediately. We changed the starter, we got all new tires, recharged the AC, replaced the battery cables, and changed the oil, and got caught up on the registration, all to the tune of about $750. It was almost like a brand new car. We were pretty broke at the time, and my girlfriend needed a new car, so I figured this one would be suffice until we got back up on our feet. My mom never lost her car, so she still had transportation. About a week after we got it roadworthy again, my mother called me up. The conversation went as followed. EM. Did you get the car fixed? Me. Yep. EM. When do I get it back? Me. We could really use a car right now, and we put about $750 into getting it going again. EM. Well, now I want it back. Me. You have another car that you can drive. If you want to pay us back for the work that we put into the car, we will give it back. Otherwise, we're gonna keep the car. Besides, you still owe me $6,000. So the way I see it, we can borrow the car. EM. You can't do that. I bought the car, and it's mine. Me. Prove it. EM. I'm gonna sue you. I'll call the cops. I'll tell them you stole the car. Me. My name is on the registration. My name is on the title. Go ahead. Take me to court. Then you can tell the judge how you forged my name on all the documents because you were evading by hiding assets from the IRS. Let's see how well this works out for you. EM. F you! You are an effing a-hole! She hung up on me. She didn't talk to me for a couple of months. I enjoyed the silent treatment. Edit 1. The $90,000 that she pulled out, she had nothing to show for. She just pissed it away on crap. Edit 2. Holy smokes, this blew up. So here's additional information. No, I never took my mom to court over the $6,000 loan. Later, just given because she'll never pay me back. She has zero money coming because she spent all of her retirement and is basically living on Social Security. I can't get blood from a rock, so I just let it be. I do check my credit often. She has no access to it anymore. We don't talk much, and I pay her bills with her money. I'm in charge of her money, so she can't get into trouble again. We are pretty much estranged at this point, but she still is my mother, and I am her only child. So there is a sense of obligation that goes with that. If I were to cut her out completely, she would be homeless. It sounds like OP's mother is a user of people, especially her child. Whenever she needs money, whenever she needs X, her child can get it for her. I was a little shocked that OP wasn't more concerned with the fact that their mother used their name to commit forgery, as well as trying to commit tax evasion in order to get a car that she couldn't afford. Anyway, that's all the stories I have today. Please stop on by Reddit to show the OP some love and an upvote. Links to the original stories will be in the description box below. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit the bell notification to let you know when I've uploaded new content. Thank you for watching and have a great day.